Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the Riflechair YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at this beautiful sweetheart right here. This 1943 BSA pedal scheme. And 303 British, number 1 Mark III. And a fantastic rifle. And we're going to be looking at this. This is a custom Enfield. This is, somebody built this in a gunsmith shop, and it's a parts rifle. I believe it is. This is not a Parker Hale. It's not a Santa Barbara. It's not a Santa Fe, I should say. And it's not a Churchill rifle. So what is it? It's a Heinz 57, but it's all of the best parts of all of those custom built rifles assembled into one. It's had a beautiful front sight attached to it, all hand checkered in the steel. It's been recrowned, beautifully done, and the bluing job is absolutely outstanding. And we're going to take a closer look at this rifle and take into consideration some of the things that you might want to do with your rifle before you take it out hunting. Now, and whenever I've been out hunting, you can hear the shots echoing off the hills, bang, 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 and it just keeps on going. Whoever it is that's shooting is missing, and they're missing, and they're missing. Why are they missing? So I'm going to run this rifle through a few tests today, and I recommend that with whatever platform you end up shooting with for your hunting trip this year, you might want to consider doing something similar. And if that kind of thing interests you, stay tuned for more. Extractor. So now that we've shot our 3-round confirmation zero grouping, what we're going to do is take the scope off, and you can see here how this thing has been drilled and tapped to the receiver, and it's spot on. It's absolutely magnificent. The scope that we have here has got the Parker Hale rings. It's a Leupold 4x32 M8 fixed 4-power scope. I mean, what else do you really need? Perfect. Okay, so here's before I took the scope off. Let's just put some circles around there. There's where she's shooting at with open sights at 200. That's a 200 meter zero. That's before I made a sight adjustment. It was shooting just a little bit to the left, so I made a sight adjustment. Had her at 200 meters is the point of aim, because that's what I can see. And we should be about 4 inches high. So bang. This is the with open sights after I took the scope off. Okay. That's just to verify. Yeah, I did need to move the front sight over, so that's something you want to do before you you set your hunting scope on the rifle. That's before I took the scope off the rifle, and I've reattached it in accordance with the tension dots I put on the scope. So let's see how close to zero she's maintained. Okay, let's try the 5-rounder. Tiny little things, but you can still fit 5 rounds inside of a magazine like this, unlike today's modern rifles where you can only fit 3 rounds or maybe 4 rounds. This tiny little thing, you know, a 100-year-old magazine fits 5 rounds. Go figure. And it's a rimmed cartridge. What the hell? Fits right in there beautifully. Alright, let's see what these CamPro targets, CamPro 180 grain pills can do. See if our scope is still zeroed. It's old Parker Held technology. Okay, so with removing the rings and then firing a couple shots here for the for open sights just to verify my zero, and then reattaching the scope with you know, having drawn the tension dots on there, tension marks. You know, I'm within about 1.5 minutes of my original group. I got a bit of a 1.5 minute correction to the right to make. However, that's pretty good. I mean, in comparison to other platforms that I've done this test with, for example, the Warren QD rings, those are a 3 minute of angle setup. This is like half of that. So that's phenomenal, the old Parker Held rings. They're not the strongest system in the world, but you can remove your scope, put it back on, and be within 1.5 minutes of angle. That's pretty outstanding for, you know, old school technology, old school riflery, musketry. And I just got off the range. There was another guy here. He had a 7mm STW and a 300 short mag. Sorry, a 300 Winchester Magnum, all in featherweight rifles. And he shot three rounds for each rifle, and he had to go because he was just so beat up and punished. His shoulder was just a mess. So, but I'm just going to keep banging away because, you know, old school technology. You're not talking about featherweight rifles. You're just talking about bolts and nuts, blood and bones, and built like a tank technology. And for me, that's a hunting rifle, not these lightweight, ultra featherweight rifles and huge, massive calibers. And his groups were like 8 inches at 100 meters. He just was all over the place. So he's pretty depressed. But here we are with 303, 180 grain CamPro bullets. And we're just laying them in there. Yeah, it's not a precision rifle. It was never built to be one. But, you know, for hunting purposes, this is absolutely phenomenal. And there hasn't been any more moose shot in Canada and put food on the table than with a Enfield rifle. Blood and guts. Okay, let's put the pack sack on and do some hunting practice preparation. Okay, so this is simply to simulate that I'm out hunting and I've come across a moose or a deer that's legal, and I'm just going to assume the prone, kneeling, and or sitting position, and the prone, the standing position. I'm going to shoot off 3 shots, and when the body has got adrenaline running through it, maybe you're winded, you've physically exerted yourself. You know, you're not going to be shooting at your best. So it's good to test kind of a little bit by simulating what your situation would likely be with a backpack on. You're walking from point A to point B, and that's when you see it, and you have to act. So the objective is simply to simulate what reality may throw at you one day. So how difficult is it to shoot in the prone position while strapped into a backpack? Let's find out. Okay, so those were not well aimed shots. Now let's do this again in the kneeling position. Same situation, kneeling position. We're in some buckbrush, or we're in some tall grass when we can't get a sight picture in the prone position, which is the more stable position. So we're gonna simulate shooting in those situations. Here, moose, moose, moose. with that one. Again, this is not target shooting. You're trying to get the rounds off in relatively quick succession, just in case the first one doesn't quite do the job. The animal will probably run. It can run anywhere from 50 to 100 meters before it actually drops. In some situations, animals, when they get shot, they generally have a tendency to jump and run, and you may need to be able to get a second round off in quick succession. So that's the idea behind this. Okay, in this situation we're going to run the standing, and I'm going to be shooting at the 200 meter gong, which is about 8 inches across. And I'll be using the 5 round short mag again, just because you got to test your equipment, right? Oh, there's a moose. And it's legal. Actually, I'll use a sling for this. That's a long shot. Oh, how about that? And that's low. So 2 out of 3 hits at 200 meters. But the first 2 did the job for sure. Okay, let's go look at the target. So here we go. Here we go. Here's prone and supported. Again, not quite rapid fire, more like, trying to squeeze out as much as you can, as accurate as you can within a short period of time, but not quite rapid fire. This is prone, this is kneeling, and I got 2 out of 3 shots within inside of 8 inches at 200 meters with this old school rifle. 303 British, 180 grain, CamPro bullets. Now they refer to them as a semi-Spitzer round nose, and that to me is basically the perfect bullet for the 303 rifle, especially when you look at the feed ramp on these rifles. I'm getting very little in the way of deformation of the exposed lead tip of the bullet. Hitting that feed ramp, smashing it in there and chambering around, I'm getting little to no deformities whatsoever. Whereas you're probably going to get, if it's a very pointy Spitzer point bullet, you're going to get some of that exposed lead kind of smushed over to one side after it hits that feed ramp. Not a problem with these bullets. And from the bench testing, I was getting about 2-inch groups, which is pretty good for a 303 British. And those bullets, they fly just fine. There's a nice, beautiful powder charge of IMR 4350 behind those 180 grain CamPro semi-Spitzer round nose bullets, and they're clocking at around 2385 feet per second. I'm not going to give you what the powder charge is, because that's for you guys to decide with that powder type. So we've gone through a process with this specific rifle that I will do with every hunting rifle that I take out, which is to put it through a few trials and tests before I consider going to even consider taking it out to the field for hunting purposes. I've removed the scope. I verified the zero with the open sights. Right, I've got a 200 meter zero with the open sights. I've got a 100 meter zero with the scope right now. But generally, I would have both set at 200 meters, simply because that's where my scope was set for this particular field trial here. But it's not too far off being where I would like for it to be. It's kind of in between 100 and 200 right now. So if you're zeroed at 200 meters, your point of impact at 100 will be 4 inches high, generally with a 180 grain bullet. Okay, regularly with this ammunition that I've procured here for this rifle, at 200 meters, I'm getting about a 5-inch group, 5 to 6 inch group, and that's more than sufficient for hunting purposes and for most applications in the kind of bush that I'm in here. Generally 200 meters is considered to be a bit of a long shot, and I know a lot of you guys out there in the plains and the prairies, with you're looking more like the 300 to 400 meters. For that for me is extreme long range hunting, and I would probably be using a different platform for that purpose. But I really like the reliability of the Lee Enfield rifle, the controlled round feeding. Yes, folks, it is a controlled round feeding rifle, very similar in nature to a Mauser 98 or a Winchester Model 70 or a Ruger Model 77. The Lee Enfield is also a controlled round feeding rifle, which is where the extractor takes firm hold of the cartridge before it is chambered. So if you only partially insert the case into the chamber, you can actually pull it out without having to close the bolt and snap your extractor over the rim. So these are a control round feeding rifle, believe it or not. Hell of a tough, reliable, and pretty accurate rifle. And so this is the kinds of rifles that I want when I go hunting. This particular example that you see here is not a Parker Hale. It is not a Churchill rifle. It is not a Santa Fe. It is essentially somebody who really knew what they were doing. Some gunsmith somewhere built this rifle. It is a custom Lee Enfield rifle, and it's taking the best of components of different rifles. For example, the wood on here is from a Churchill rifle. The scope mounting option, as you see here, is from Parker Hale. Also, very interestingly enough, the stripper clippers bridge has been retained on this rifle and mounted straight to it. Most of the Parker Hale variants that you will see, or the professional sporter rifles, have this missing. I don't know why they did that, but I suspect it may have had to do with trying to reduce the weight of the rifle. So anyways, this one has retained it, and that makes the rifle stronger. I don't mind the weight. For example, I mean, our friend over here that was shooting the 7mm STW, after 3 shots he was getting a headache and he had to go home. I can shoot this all day. Right, so these were shot, speaking of which, with the hot barrel. I wasn't getting any mirage off of it, but it was hot to the touch. But this beautiful, beautiful custom built SMLE is an absolute joy to shoot. It's got some custom checkering on it. The quality of the walnut is absolutely astounding. And the BA-27 Parker Hale receiver mounted, drilled and tapped to the rifle is phenomenal. And you can probably see that right there, where it's been drilled and tapped into the receiver. The quality of the bluing is exceptional, and it's a beautiful, beautiful rifle. And it almost always grabs the attention of somebody on the range. So these old school rifles, you don't fix it if it ain't broke. Hope you enjoy the video, folks. Riflechair signing off, and as always, Maple Leaf up. I love the Enfield. What a great rifle.